Welcome to Mindleapic, where history whispers softly, guiding you to a peaceful rest. Tonight, we begin a gentle journey into the past with the story of how hobos survived the Great Depression without a single dollar. If this tranquil tale soothes your mind, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment to share your thoughts. Now, settle into a cozy spot, let your breath slow, and allow the calm rhythm of this story to drift you towards sleep. The year was 1929, and the world paused in a hush. The stock market, a place of dreams and numbers, crumbled quietly, like leaves falling in autumn. Factories dimmed their lights, their machines falling silent. Banks locked their doors, savings vanishing like morning mist. 1 in 4 Americans stood without work, their days stretching long and empty. No wages meant no food on tables, no coins in pockets. Yet, in this stillness, a group of wanderers found a way to live. A life unbound by money, shaped by quiet resilience. These were the hobos, travelers of the open road and iron rails, not beggars, not drifters who lingered, but wanderers who moved with purpose, riding freight trains across the vast American landscape. They carried little, a bindle, a small sack tied to a stick, holding perhaps a worn shirt, a tin cup, or a crust of bread. Their lives were simple, their days a soft rhythm of motion and survival, set to the distant clatter of train wheels. How did they live without a dollar? Their journey began with the rails. Hobos mastered the art of train hopping, a skill learned in the quiet hours of night. They waited by tracks, ears tuned to the low rumble of an approaching freight train. Like a storm gathering far away, with a careful step, they leaped onto moving cars, clinging to ladders or slipping into empty boxcars. Inside, they curled up in corners, the wind's soft whistle through wooden slats their only companion. The risks were real. Railroad bulls, those watchful guards, could chase them off, or a misstep could end in injury. But in the gentle sway of the train, they found freedom, traveling from the fields of Kansas to the orchards of California, all without a cent. Food came not from markets but from the earth's quiet offerings. Hobos foraged with care, gathering wild berries from bushes, along the tracks or pulling fish from streams with makeshift lines of string and bent pins, an apple plucked from a forgotten tree, a handful of walnuts scattered on the ground. These were gifts of the land. In small towns, they knocked softly on back doors, offering to split firewood or mend a gate for a plate of beans or a slice of bread. Sometimes, a kind soul offered angel food, a meal given freely, no work required, warming both body and spirit. Hobo jungles bloomed near rail yards, hidden camps where wanderers gathered in the glow of campfires. Here, under the stars, they shared what little they had. A pot of mulligan stew simmered over the flames, filled with whatever anyone could spare. A potato, a carrot, perhaps a bit of meat from a snared rabbit. The scent rose gently, blending with the pine and soil. In these camps, no one went hungry if others had food to share. The fires crackle, and soft voices telling tales. Of the road wove a quiet community, a refuge in the vastness. Shelter was as simple as the night sky. In jungles, hobos built lean-tos from branches and old canvas, or they nestled into haystacks on nearby farms. Cardboard or newspapers became bedding, softening the earth's chill. When rain fell, they sought abandoned barns or the dry undersides of bridges, where the patter of drops above lulled them to sleep. After miles of walking along gravel tracks, their bodies welcomed rest. Exhaustion, a gentle guide to slumber. Clothing was mended with patient hands. A torn jacket was patched with scraps from an old scarf, stitched with borrowed thread. Shoes, worn thin by endless steps, were resoled with rubber cut from discarded tires, fastened with nails or string. Bathing meant a dip in a cold river, soap crafted from ash and fat when possible, or a scrub with dry grass to shake off dust. These small acts kept them presentable, ready to seek work without drawing eyes. The hobo code guided them like a silent map. Symbols, scratched in chalk or carved into wood, marked safe paths and warnings. A circle with a dot meant a good road ahead. 2 lines crossing warned of a harsh town. These signs, left by those who came before, built a network of knowledge, helping hobos navigate without coins or compasses. The Great Depression stretched into the 1930s, pulling more into this life. Farmers, their fields lost to dust and debt, joined the rails. Workers, let go from silent factories, followed. Even young boys, seeking escape from hunger, learned the ways of the road. Women, though fewer, rode too, often hiding in men's clothes for safety. Each carried their story, yet all shared the same quiet determination to endure. In the jungles, order emerged. Hobos chose jungle mayors to settle disputes and share tasks, like fetching water or keeping fires low to avoid notice. Music drifted through the camps, a harmonica's soft wail or a guitar's gentle strum. Songs like Hallelujah, I'm a Bum carried their spirit, a reminder of freedom in hardship. The melody lingered, easing worries into the night. Work, when it came, was fleeting but welcome. Harvests drew hobos to fields, where they picked peaches or wheat for a meal and a few coins if lucky. Logging camps in the Northwest, construction sites in cities. These offered brief pauses from wandering, yet the rails always called them back, their true home a path without end. In cities, soup kitchens ladled out broth, but hobos often shunned them, valuing the open road's independence. They bartered when possible. A day's labor for a pair of boots, a story swapped for a pinch of tobacco. Pride kept them moving, their lives a quiet defiance of despair. The Dust Bowl swept through the plains, turning fields to sand. Families, known as Okies and Arkies, joined the rails, heading west. Hobos shared secrets of survival, sealing boxcar cracks against dust, finding water in dry lands. Their ingenuity was a soft light in the darkness, guiding them through nature's trials. As Roosevelt's New Deal began, government programs like the Civilian Conservation Corps offered work, planting trees, building trails. Some hobos joined, sending wages to families left behind. But many preferred the road's gentle freedom, choosing the uncertainty of wandering over structured days. This is the story of Part 1, a quiet beginning to the hobo's journey. Their lives, woven from resourcefulness and resilience, remind us that survival can be soft, steady, and shared. Close your eyes now. Let the rhythm of their story fade and drift into rest. The hobo's life was a quiet dance with the land, a rhythm shaped by the clack of train wheels and the whisper of wind through open fields. As the Great Depression tightened its grip through the early 1930s, these wanderers honed their skills, finding ways to live without a dollar. Their days a gentle flow of survival and freedom. The rails remained their lifeline, stretching across the nation like veins carrying them from one hope to the next. But survival meant more than hopping. Trains. It meant mastering the art of living lightly, with nothing but wit and the kindness of strangers. The hobo's world was one of constant motion, yet it held a stillness, a calm acceptance of what each day might bring. They learned to read the land, the people, and the signs that guided their path, all while keeping their spirits steady in the face of hardship. Their story, woven from resourcefulness, continues to unfold, a soft tale of endurance in a world that seemed to have forgotten them. The freight trains they rode were more than transportation. They were a way of life. Each train had its own character, its own secrets. Boxcars, with their wide wooden interiors, offered space to stretch out, though drafts crept through cracks. Gondolas, open to the sky, carried coal or gravel, leaving hobos dusted in grit but free to watch the stars. Reefers, refrigerated cars, held hidden compartments where a traveler could slip in, safe from prying eyes. Hobos learned which trains ran slow enough to board, which routes led to harvest towns, and which yards had lax guards. They shared this knowledge in jungles, passing it like a quiet gift from one wanderer to another. A good train could mean a day's rest. A bad one, a brush with danger. Railroad bulls, those stern enforcers, patrolled with clubs and lanterns, ready to drag trespassers off. Yet hobos developed tricks. Boarding at dusk, hiding in shadows, or leaping off before a yard inspection. Their movements were careful, their senses sharp, tuned to the hum of the rails. Food remained a daily quest, one met with ingenuity. Foraging went beyond berries and nuts. Hobos learned to spot edible plants like dandelions, their leaves boiled for greens or cattails, their roots roasted into a starchy meal. Hunting was simple but effective. A slingshot made from a forked stick, and rubber bands took down squirrels, while snares crafted from wire caught rabbits. Fishing lines, rigged with hooks from pins, pulled trout from streams. Cooking happened over small fires, with tin cans serving as pots. Hobo coffee, brewed from grounds reused until flavor faded, warmed cold mornings. Bread came from flour begged at farms, mixed with water and baked on hot stones. These meals, though plain, filled bellies and kept spirits light. In towns, hobos sought work for food. A farmer might need a fence fixed, a widow a porch swept. In exchange, they received a sandwich, a bowl of soup, or a slice of pie wrapped in cloth. Some households marked their gates with hobo symbols, signaling kindness to those who knocked. A loaf of bread meant a welcoming home, while a crossed arrow warned of hostility. These exchanges were gentle, a quiet trade of labor for sustenance, built on trust in a distrustful time. Hobo jungles were more than camps. They were communities bound by unwritten rules. No one stole from another's bindle. Fires were kept low to avoid attention. Water, fetched from nearby streams, was boiled in shared cans. Laundry dried on bushes, socks and shirts flapping like flags of survival. At night, stories filled the air. Tales of close calls with bulls, of towns with generous kitchens, of winters survived in boxcars. Some jungles had libraries, piles of tattered books or newspapers traded among wanderers, offering news or escape. A jungle mayor, chosen for wisdom, settled disputes over food or space, ensuring peace in the flickering firelight. Shelter evolved with the seasons. Summer meant sleeping under open skies, grass soft beneath weary backs. Fall brought lean-tos of branches and canvas, sturdy enough for cool nights. Winter pushed hobos south, to warmer states like Texas or Florida, where orange groves offered work and milder evenings. Abandoned buildings, from crumbling sheds to empty warehouses, became refugees when storms hit. Haystacks on farms provided warmth, though burrowing too deep risked suffocation. Cardboard found in alleys insulated against frost. Each choice was practical, a soft solution to the land's challenges. Clothing required constant care. A tear in a coat was sewn with thread unraveled from an old sock. Buttons, lost to wear, were replaced with carved wood or bone. Shoes, the hobo's lifeline, were patched tirelessly. Rubber from tires, leather from discarded belts. When clothes grew too thin, hobos bartered labor for cast-offs, a farmer's old jacket or a worker's worn boots. Bathing in rivers kept them clean, with soap made from campfire ash and fat scraps when none was at hand. A clean appearance meant better odds of work, a lesson learned early and kept close. The hobo code grew richer, a language of survival scratched into the landscape. A wavy line meant a safe water source. A square signaled a generous town. These symbols, shared across jungles, formed a map only hobos could read, guiding them to safety or warning of danger. A kind woman's home was marked with a cat, a doctor who treated for free with a cross. This silent network, built by countless hands, turned the vast country into a familiar path. The depression's weight pressed harder as dust storms swept the plains. The Dust Bowl, born of drought and over-farming, turned fields to deserts. Families, their homes buried in sand, joined the rails as Okies and Arkies. Their cars traded for a seat in a boxcar. Hobos taught them survival. How to seal a car's cracks with rags, how to spot a spring in arid lands. Water became precious, carried in cans or sipped from cacti. These newcomers swelled the jungles, bringing new stories but also strain, as food and space grew scarce. Yet hobos shared, their code holding firm. Work remained a lifeline, though jobs were few. Harvests offered the most, picking apples in Washington, cotton in Texas, or grapes in California. A day's labor might earn a meal, a night's rest, or a dime saved for leaner days. Logging camps in Oregon hired hobos to fell trees. Construction crews in cities needed hands for bridges or roads. These jobs were brief, often lasting a week, but they broke the monotony of the road. Hobos took pride in their work, their calloused hands proof of effort in a world that offered little. Bartering filled gaps where work did not. A hobo might trade a day's labor for a blanket, or a whittled toy for a loaf of bread. Tobacco, a rare comfort, was swapped for stories or songs. In jungles, goods circulated. A razor for a comb, a hat for a pair of gloves. This economy of trade, built on trust, let hobos stretch their resources, their lives a quiet balance of give and take. Music was their solace, a thread of joy in lean times. A harmonica, small enough to fit a bindle, sang of the road's highs and lows. Guitars, often borrowed or bartered, strummed melodies like Big Rock Candy Mountain, a dream of plenty in a world of want. Singing passed time, eased hunger, and bound camps together. Some hobos carved flutes from reeds, their notes floating soft over firelight. These sounds, simple and heartfelt, carried hope through the darkest nights. Health was a constant concern, met with folk knowledge. Willow bark, chewed for pain, soothed aches from long walks. Garlic, found in fields or given by kitchens, fought colds. Injuries, cuts from climbing trains, bruises from falls, were bandaged with clean rags, cleaned with boiled water. Hobos shared remedies, passing tips like currency. A poultice of leaves for swelling, tea from pine needles for strength. Mental health leaned on companionship, the jungle's chatter a shield against loneliness. The government's response, under Roosevelt, began to shift the landscape. The Civilian Conservation Corps hired young men to plant trees and build parks, drawing some hobos off the rails. Camps offered food, shelter, and wages, though many wanderers resisted, valuing the road's freedom over routine. Those who joined sent money to families, their labor a quiet bridge to stability. Other programs, like transient bureaus, opened shelters, but hobos distrusted their rules, preferring the open sky. The hobo's life was not without its heroes. Figures like Blackie, who rode 1,000,000 miles, became legends, their stories told in jungles from coast to coast. No to One, the Rambler, wrote books on hobo ways, teaching codes and survival. Their words, printed or spoken, gave the life dignity, a reminder that poverty did not erase pride. Women, though fewer, carved their own paths. Known as Sisters of the Road, they faced harsher risks, traveling in pairs or disguised as men. Their courage, quiet but fierce, added depth to the hobo's tale. As Part 2 draws to a close, the hobo's world grows clearer. A life of motion, ingenuity, and unspoken bonds. Their survival, woven from the land and each other, carries us forward, a gentle reminder of resilience in the face of want. Let their story settle softly, guiding you to rest as we continue the journey. Hobo jungles pulsed with a quiet life of their own, hidden pockets of humanity amid the endless rails and empty fields. As the 1930s wore on, these camps became the heart of the wanderer's world, places where stories were traded, like precious coins and survival. Tips flowed like the smoke from low-burning fires. Without dollars to bind them, hobos relied on the jungle's gentle order, a web of shared knowledge that turned strangers into kin. The air in these spots carried the scent of simmering stews and damp earth, a reminder that even in the Depression's shadow, community could bloom soft and strong. Here, away from the clamor of cities and the grind of farms, hobos found a rhythm that sustained them, their days unfolding in a tapestry of quiet routines and unexpected bonds. The jungles varied with the land, each one a reflection of its surroundings. Near Chicago's rail yards, they huddled in thickets by the river, the water's murmur a constant companion. In the southwest deserts, sparse clusters of tents dotted dry washes, where shade from mesquite trees offered brief relief from the sun. Pacific Northwest camps nestled in fern-choked woods, rain pattering on canvas roofs like a soothing drum. No matter the place, the jungle's spirit remained the same. A sanctuary built on trust, where a new arrival was greeted with a nod and a spot by the fire. Entry was simple. Offer a hand in chores or a tale from the road. Stealing or fighting meant swift exile, enforced by the group's unspoken code. A jungle mayor, often an elder with a steady voice, mediated with fairness, his word law in the flickering light. Chores rotated gently. One fetched water from a stream, straining it through cloth to clear the mud. Another gathered wood. Dry twigs snapped quietly to avoid noise. Cooking fell to those with skill, stirring pots over coals that glowed red and warm. These tasks, shared without resentment, wove the camp into a living whole, each hobo's effort easing the burden for all. Meals in the jungle were feasts of scraps turned to sustenance. Mulligan stew, the staple, bubbled in a dented can, its broth thickened with whatever came to hand. Onions begged from a market edge, wild greens plucked at dawn, bones from a hunted opossum. Bread, baked in ashes or traded from a farm, sopped up the gravy. Coffee, weak but hot, passed in tin cups, its bitterness chased with a pinch of sugar if fortune smiled. On rare, abundant days, a shared fish or fowl added flavor, roasted on sticks held over flames. Eating happened in a circle, forks of bent wire dipping in unison, conversation low and meandering. No one claimed the best portions. The weakest or newest took first, a nod to the code's quiet equity. Stories followed the meal, the fire's warmth drawing words from the shadows. One hobo might recount a narrow escape from a bull in Kansas, his voice rising soft with the thrill. Another shared a kindness from a diner waitress, her extra pie a spark of grace. Tall tales mingled with truths, visions of lost gold mines, or the day a train derailed into a river, cargo floating free for the taking. Laughter rippled gently, easing the ache of empty pockets. These narratives passed like heirlooms, taught as much as they entertained, lessons in routes, remedies, and the human heart. Entertainment bloomed from nothing. Cards, worn to translucence, shuffled for poker or rummy, stakes a puff of tobacco or a chore waved. Harmonicas wailed blues under the moon, fingers dancing over holes to pull melancholy notes. Guitars, strings frayed but true, picked out folk tunes of rambling men and distant homes. Some carved whistles from elderberry stems or fashioned dice from peach pits. Children, rare but welcome in family camps, played tag among tents, their giggles a light counterpoint to adult worries. These simple joys stitched the evenings together, turning long nights into moments of connection. Sleep came in waves, bodies unrolling blankets on pine needles or flattened grass. Sentries took turns watching for lights in the distance, a precaution against raids. Dreams, if they visited, carried echoes of rails and rivers, the mind's gentle wander mirroring the body's. Mornings broke with birdsong, the camp stirring slow as dew evaporated. Breakfast mirrored supper in simplicity. Porridge from cornmeal begged or found, sweetened with berries if in season. Plans formed over the meal, which train to catch, which town to try. Farewells were brief, a handshake or a wave, the jungle shrinking in the rear view as new horizons called. Beyond the jungle's embrace, the road demanded its own wisdom. Hobos navigated by the sun and stars, their paths traced in dust and memory. A full moon lit tracks for night walking, shadows long and silver. Weather reading became instinct. Cirrus clouds whispering rain, a red sky promising fair days. These signs, learned from old-timers, spared many a drenching or a frostbitten vigil. Bartering extended the jungle's economy outward. In towns, a hobo might swap a day's weeding for a sack of potatoes, or mend a roof for nails and cloth. Goods flowed freely. A pocket knife for a map sketch, a song for a haircut with borrowed shears. This trade, rooted in need over greed, kept bindles stocked without a dime's jingle. Women in the life faced unique trials, their jungles often smaller, more guarded. They formed sister circles, sharing sewing tips or herb lore for monthly pains. Disguised or bold, they rode the rails, their resilience a quiet force amid the men's rougher edges. Some mothered on the move, binding babies to backs with shawls, nursing by firelight. Their stories, told in hushed tones, spoke of endurance deeper than the tracks ran. The Dust Bowl's grip tightened, its storms a veil of grit that choked the air. Hobos sealed masks from bandanas, eyes watering as winds howled. Water hunts led to hidden wells or dew collected on tarps at dawn. These trials forged unbreakable spirits, the jungle a beacon after days in sealed boxcars. Work's pull grew seasonal. A tide hobos followed with ease. Spring planting in the Midwest drew hands for plowing. Fall harvests in the valleys for picking. Wages, when paid, were pocketed deep. A quarter for tobacco, $1 for a new bindle stick, yet cash rarely lingered. It bought tools or treats, the rest saved for emergencies like a doctor's fee. Construction boomed in cities under New Deal funds, bridges rising from river mud. Hobos lent muscle, their road-hardened frames a match for the labor. These stints, though structured, offered glimpses of normalcy. A bed and 3 squares, a luxury savored before the rails reclaimed them. Health lore deepened in the jungles. Remedies brewed from the wild. Yarrow for fevers, steeped in hot water. Mulligan for coughs, smoked in corncob pipes. Breaks from falls, splinted with straight branches and rags. Infections watched closely, lanced if needed with a heated knife. Mental strains, the road's silent thief, met with talk. Confessions by fire easing burdens like steam from a kettle. The code extended to aid. A sick hobo carried. His load lightened until strength returned. Government shadows lengthened. Programs like the Federal Transient Service opening camps with rules and rations. Some hobos dipped in for a spell. Baths and beds a rare indulgence. But the wild call proved stronger. The jungle's freedom a pull no bureaucracy could match. Legends grew around campfires. Figures like Dean Stiff, the hobo poet, whose verses captured the road's poetry. His lines, recited from memory, painted pictures of boxcar sunsets and jungle dawns. Or the Flying Dutchman, a ghost train said to carry lost souls, a yarn spun to startle newcomers. These myths, half truth, half fancy, enriched the nights, their whimsy a balm for weary hearts. As seasons turned, migrations followed. North in summer for lumber, south in winter for citrus. Each move a chapter, the story unfolding mile by mile. Pride defined them, a quiet dignity in patched clothes and calloused palms. They left camps cleaner than found, symbols etched as thanks. This ethic, born of necessity, echoed through their lives, a testament to living well with little. In the broader world, the Depression's scars ran deep, banks still failing, farms foreclosed. Hobos, detached yet aware, gleaned news from tossed papers. Headlines of Hoovervilles, shanty towns named in mockery. Their own world, though, stayed small and self-contained, focused on the next meal, the next ride. Cultural echoes reached even them. Woody Guthrie's songs, hummed in jungles, voicing the everyman's ache. Books like You Can't Win by Jack Black, Past Bindle to Bindle, offered gritty inspiration. As Part 3 fades into the distance, the jungle's warmth lingers, a soft hearth in the hobo's wandering heart. Their ways, simple and profound, invite us deeper, where the road's whispers grow ever clearer, lulling us toward peace. The rails themselves were the hobo's silent companions, stretching like silver threads through valleys and over mountains, carrying whispers of distant places. In the heart of the Depression, as years blurred into one another, these iron paths became more than routes. They were lifelines, etched with danger and discovery. Hobos moved to their steady hum, their lives a careful balance between boldness and caution, surviving without dollars by reading the land's subtle cues and the train's unforgiving rhythm. Shadows played tricks along the tracks at dusk, hiding both peril and promise, as wanderers learned to trust their instincts in a world that offered no safety nets. This chapter of their tale unfolds along those endless lines, where every curve held a lesson in quiet endurance and the art of moving unseen. Boarding a train was an act of grace, a dance with momentum that separated the skilled from the novice. Hobos scouted yards at twilight, when shadows lengthened and workers turned homeward. A freight assembling in the distance meant opportunity. Cars coupling with soft clangs, brakes hissing like sighs. They chose wisely. Empty boxcars for shelter, flat cars for open air if the weather held kind. The leap required timing. A run parallel to the slow rolling beast, hand reaching for a rung or grab iron. Feet found purchase on the step, body swinging aboard in one fluid motion. Once inside, they melted into corners, bindles tucked close. Breaths held until the yard faded behind. A missed grab could mean a tumble into gravel, bones bruised or worse, but practice turned fear to muscle memory. Riding brought its own hush. The train's sway lulled like a cradle, wheels singing a monotonous song over joints. Landscapes slipped by in soft focus. Golden wheat waving in Kansas, pine forests cloaking the Rockies, the Pacific's fog rolling in from California shores. Hobos marked time by the sun's arc or the star's wheel, meals snatched from bindle scraps. Dried apples, hardtack chewed slow, water, carried in canteens or begged at stops, rationed sip by sip. Conversation, if with a fellow rider, stayed low, voices blending with the wind's murmur. Solitude wrapped them gently, thoughts drifting to lost homes or dreamed futures. The road a canvas for the mind's quiet wanderings. Dangers shadowed every mile, unyielding as the steel beneath. Railroad bulls, hired to protect the lines, prowled with flashlights and bats, their shouts cutting the night like knives. Encounters ended in chases, leaps from moving cars into brush, hearts pounding as lanterns swept close. Some bulls turned a blind eye for a shared smoke. Others dragged riders to jails for vagrancy fines they couldn't pay. Derailments, rare but ruthless, shook cars like dice, spilling loads and lives. Hobos braced for the jolt, hands gripping sills, prayers whispered to no one. Weather added its weight. Summer heat baking boxcar planks, winter gales freezing fingers to metal. Lightning storms turned rails to rivers of spark, floods washing tracks away. Yet these threats honed their senses, turning riders into seers of the subtle. The groan of a loose wheel, the scent of rain on dust. Survival meant preparation. Extra socks for frost, a rag to bite against dust storms. The hobo code shone brightest in peril, symbols warning of bull-heavy yards or treacherous jumps. A skull carved in a tie meant death's door nearby, a detour worth miles. These marks, renewed by passers-by, wove a safety net of ink and caution. Towns along the rails offered brief respites, their edges frayed by hard times. Hobos slipped in at dawn, seeking the freight yard's bustle for work or alms. A sign reading "Men Wanted" at a mill meant a day's haul for beans and bunk. Bakeries, their ovens warm against the chill, sometimes slipped day-olds through back doors. Crusts shared in alley huddles. Police stretched thin, rousted sleepers from benches, but compassion flickered in some badges. A warning instead of cuffs. Hobos moved light through streets, eyes down, bindles slung low to blend with laborers. A kind storekeeper might trade a shave for soap, his stories of crop failures mirroring their own. These encounters, fleeting as morning light, reminded them of the world's shared ache, humanity persisting in small gestures. Food hunts in transit grew creative. Along rural stretches, hobos dropped from slow trains to raid gardens. Corn ears snapped quiet. Tomatoes plucked ripe. Chickens, if loose, met the end of a thrown stone. Feathers plucked by firelight later. Urban edges yielded dumpsters behind markets. peels and cores sorted for the edible. A jungle telegraph spread word of free kitchens run by churches, lines forming soft under stained glass windows. Soup, thin but hot, came with bread and a sermon, accepted with nods of thanks. These feeds sustained, but hobos prized the self-gleaned, their independence a quiet pride, shelter on the move adapted to whim. Between rides, culverts under roads hid from rain, their echoey dark a womb of sorts. Billboards, their undersides dry, sheltered against wind. Ads for tonics faded above. Farm outbuildings, left unlocked, offered straw beds, though owners' dogs patrolled. In cities, viaducts arched over sleepers. Traffic's rumble a distant thunder. Each spot chosen for cover and quiet, the body curling small to conserve warmth. Dreams came unbidden, of full tables or steady roofs, waking to the dawn's pale promise. Clothings where told tales of miles logged, patches layered like history, colors mismatched but serviceable, a hat, brim curled from sweat, shaded eyes from sun, gloves fingerless for grip, guarded against splinters. When threads gave out, hobos scavenged lines, fences for wire, rags from trash, barber shops, if merciful, trimmed beards for free, a mirror's glimpse restoring dignity. These rituals, performed in stream reflections, kept the outer self aligned with the inner resolve. The code's symbols multiplied along the way, a hieroglyphic diary of the collective. An X through a house warned of unfriendly folk, a pointing finger led to water. Hobos paused to etch their own, chalk stubs ground fine for subtlety. This language, evolving with need, bridged gaps between solitary souls, turning isolation to interconnection. Families on the rails added tenderness to the grit. Parents with children rode cautious, boxcars padded with newsprint for the young. Kids learned early. Symbols spotted like games. Berries picked with glee. Mothers wove tales to quiet fears. Fathers scouted safe jumps. Their presence softened camps. Songs for little ones mingling with adult laments. Yet hardship etched lines on young faces, a quiet cost of the wandering life. Women's paths, often veiled, crossed rails with cunning. Bound chests and cropped hair masked them as brothers, their voices pitched low in yards. Sister jungles, tucked in woods away from eyes, shared lace for wounds or recipes for tonics. Their survival, laced with vigilance, wove strength into the tapestry, their whispers a counterpoint to the men's deeper tones. The Dust Bowl's echoes lingered, its grit still caking boots from western halls. Hobos traded tales of black blizzards, skies dark at noon, lungs burning with earth. Lessons learned there. Masks from wet cloth, eyes shielded by goggles begged from mechanics. Saved lives in later storms, water lore deepened. Divining rods whittled from forks, or simply following bird flights to springs. These adaptations, born of desperation, turned calamity to curriculum. Work's seasons shifted with the calendar. A gentle pull hobos heeded. Spring's thaw brought road crews. Gravel shoveled under warming suns. Summer's heat called to fisheries on coasts. Nets mended for cod and clams. Fall's bounty filled orchards. Ladders climbed for pears and plums. Winter's bite eased in southern mills. Cotton ginned by lantern light. Each job a chapter. Skills traded like currency. A carpenter's hammer for a mason's trowel. Wages, meager, bought needles or news. The rest tucked for the lean stretch ahead. Bartering bridged the gaps. A fluid exchange in markets or camps. A whittled pipe for pipe tobacco. A snare set for shared meat. Trust underpinned it all. broken rarely, mended with apologies by fire. Music's thread ran constant, a balm for rail-weary bones. Banjos plucked in gondola shade, fiddles bowed to hoedown steps. Choruses swelled on this train, its verses a litany of the faithful road. Instruments, heirlooms or handmade, passed hand to hand, their tones a bridge over silence. Health's guard stayed vigilant, the body's temple tended with wild gifts. Elderberry syrup for flues, brewed in cans over coals. Bone set for breaks, splints tight but not cruel. Mind's shadows, creeping in long rides, chased with journals scratched on margins. Words a release like breath. Companions listened, nods heavy with understanding, the jungle's ear ever open. Government tendrils reached further, the Works Progress Administration hiring artists among wanderers, murals painted of rail lives. Some hobos sketched maps or penned poems, their talents a quiet rebellion against want. Transient camps with cots and commissaries, tempted with structure, but the wild's whisper won most back to tracks. Legends multiplied, like the hobo king of Frisco, said to rule bayside camps with wisdom and wit. His edicts, jests wrapped in truth, echoed in recitals. Share the load, lighten the heart. Or the ghost rider, a spectral figure aiding stranded souls, fuel for fireside shivers. These fables, spun from sparks of fact, gifted hope, their magic a soft shield. Pride's flame burned steady, in clean bindles and honest labor. Hobos scorned the bum's beg, their ethic one of earn through effort, however small. Camps left pristine, fires doused cold, a legacy of respect for the borrowed earth. In the wider hush, the nation's pulse quickened slow, bread lines shrinking as rains returned. Hobos felt the shift in fuller harvests, jobs lingering longer, yet the road's allure held, its freedom a choice deeper than circumstance. Echoes in culture grew. Films flickering hobo heroes, resilient rogues charming crowds. Songs on radios, tuned in jungles, sang their saga, voices like old friends. Books traded, like on-the-road precursors, mapped inner journeys mirroring outer. As Part 4 slips into twilight, the rail's shadows lengthen, their secrets half revealed. The hobo's path, fraught yet freeing, draws us onward, where dawn's light promises more tales, easing us into tranquil depths. Kindness flickered like fireflies in the hobo's world, small lights piercing the depression's long dusk, turning strangers into saviors and empty hands into full ones. As the 1930s deepened, with bread lines snaking through cities and farms, standing silent under debt's weight, these wanderers discovered that survival, without dollars, leaned on the quiet generosity of those who had little to spare. A sandwich slipped through a fence, a barn door left ajar, a whispered direction to a safe camp. These acts wove a hidden safety net across the land. Hobos, in turn, repaid with labor or lore, their lives a gentle exchange of goodwill that softened the road's edges. This thread of humanity, fragile yet enduring, carried them through leanest days, a reminder that even in scarcity, the heart could provide what pockets could not. The back doors of farmhouses became portals of grace, where hobos paused with hats in hand, voices soft with request. A widow, her table set for one, might offer cornbread and milk, warmed by the steam of shared solitude. In exchange, the wanderer chopped kindling or mended a chair, his hammer's rhythm a quiet thank you. These moments stretched time, conversations unfolding like slow rivers. Tales of distant kin, worries over crop prices, dreams deferred by the crash. No contracts bound them, only trust, a nod sealing the deal. Some homes bore the hobo code's gentle mark, a heart for open welcome, ensuring the next rider found the same warmth. Urban edges held their own mercies, diners, their counters sticky with syrup. Sometimes slid plates under the guise of mistake, hash browns and eggs vanishing quick, waitresses, faces lined by shifts, pocketed tips to buy extras, their eyes meeting the hobos with a wink. Soup kitchens, run by churches or unions, ladled out barley broth under canvas tents, volunteers in aprons stirring pots that fed hundreds, hobos lined up orderly, bowls extended, gratitude murmured low. Sermons followed, words of hope from pulpits, but the real gospel was the meal, sustaining bodies and spirits alike. Travelers' aid societies sprouted in stations, offering tickets or telegrams home, though many hobos waved them off, the road too deep in their bones. These kindnesses, scattered like seeds, bloomed where needed most, a patchwork quilt against the cold. Strangers on the rails shared burdens too, bonds formed in boxcar confines. A new rider, green to the leap, found a steady hand guiding him aboard, whispers of balance easing his fear. Food divided without count. Half a biscuit to the hungry, a swig from a canteen passed silent. In storms, bodies huddled close, shared coats warding frost, breaths mingling in the dark. Stories bridged silences. A father's farm lost to bank, a mother's letter tucked in bindle. These connections, fleeting as stops, left imprints, the road a chain of quiet alliances. Children encountered along the way tugged at heartstrings, their wide eyes mirrors of innocence amid grit. A hobo might carve a whistle from willow, its trill delighting small hands, or share berries plucked fresh, juice staining chins. Farm kids, waving from porches, tossed apples to passing trains, red orbs arcing like gifts from heaven. These interactions, pure and uncalculated, reminded wanderers of softer worlds, a balm for hardened souls. Animals, too, offered companionship's echo. Stray dogs trailed camps, ribs showing but tails wagging. Bowls of stew scraps their reward. Cats, sleek shadows in jungles, hunted mice for the pot, purring by fires as thanks. Horses in fields nickered greetings, a nuzzle trading for a currycomb's stroke. These creatures, wordless allies, eased loneliness, their presence a gentle stitch in the day's fabric. Repayment flowed naturally, hobos giving back in ways that echoed forward. A fence post straightened, a garden weeded. These labors lightened hosts' loads. In towns, they swept stoops or carried groceries. Elders spared the strain, jungle wisdom shared with locals. A snare's knot for hunters, herb teas for ailments, songs sung at crossroads drew crowds, coins rare but claps abundant, the melody a currency of joy. This cycle, give and receive, spun without tally, kindness compounding like interest in a forgotten bank. Women extended grace with nuance, their homes sanctuaries laced with caution. A matron might brew tea and listen to woes, her knitting needles clicking steady. Daughters, bold in youth, packed lunches for the road, notes tucked in. Safe travels, come again. These gestures, wrapped in quilts or jars of jam, carried warmth miles away, a thread connecting hearth to horizon. The code honored such gifts, symbols etched in thanks. A smiling face for the generous, ensuring their legend lived in chalk and care. As dust settled from bowl winds, kindness adapted to the parched. Water jugs left at fences, anonymous oases for thirsting throats. Seed packets buried in caches, sprouting greens for foragers. Hobos, scarred by storms, planted windbreaks on borrowed land, trees a legacy against future gales. These acts, rooted in empathy, turned survivors into stewards, the land giving back what was gently asked. Work born of goodwill multiplied chances. A farmer's tip led to a harvest crew, hands blistered but bellies full. A preacher's word opened mill doors, shifts of steady toil, barters sweetened, labor for lessons, a skill taught for a tool lent. Pride swelled in these exchanges, the hobo's worth proven beyond wages, his hands bridges to trust. Music wove kindness into sound, tunes traded like secrets. A ballad of the open hand, strummed soft, drew neighbors near, their harmonies joining in. Harmonica solos wept for lost homes, evoking tears and embraces. These performances, impromptu concerts by rail or river, healed divides, strangers swaying as one. Health's mercies came quiet. Healers among hobos sharing salves. A bone-setter's touch mended twisted ankles, poultices drawn from weeds. Midwives in sister camps guided births under stars. Newborns' cries a victory song. Communities repaid with vigils. Soups simmered for the ailing, recovery a group rite. Government kindnesses, tentative at first, grew under New Deal reigns. Relief rolls doled beans and blankets. Though hobos navigated them wary, forms filled with half-truths. WPA arts projects hired bards to chronicle the road, their poems etched in stone or song. These supports, bureaucratic but benevolent, eased edges without erasing the wild spirit. Legends of largesse dotted the lore. The angel of the Alleghenies, a phantom donor leaving coats on pegs, or the soup fairy of St. Louis, pots bubbling eternal for the weary. These yarns, spiced with wonder, fueled faith, their truth in the telling. Pride in giving matched receiving, hobos mentors to the green, tips on ties or towns passed freely, easing another's path. Camps mentored youth, elders' voices steadying trembling hands. This mentorship, a quiet legacy, ensured the code's survival. Kindness handed down like bindles. In the nation's slow mend, echoes persisted. Hoovervilles fostering their own charities, shanties sharing stoves. Hobos, observers from afar, contributed anonymously. Sacks of gathered nuts left at gates. Cultural ripples carried their ethic. Novels romanticizing the road's romance, radio dramas voicing valor. Songs like "Brother, Can You Spare a Dime?" captured the plea, but hobos sang of thanks, their choruses uplifting. As Part 5's glow dims to evening, kindness's echoes linger, soft calls across the miles. The hobo's journey, laced with light, beckons further, where bonds deepen and rest, awaits in stories fold. Music drifted through the hobo's nights like a soft fog, wrapping around campfires and boxcar walls, a thread of solace in the Depression's endless quiet. As the 1930s carved deeper grooves into the land, these wanderers turned scraps of sound into shields against sorrow, their songs carrying stories of loss and longing without a dollar's weight. Harmonicas tucked in pockets, guitars with necks worn smooth from countless hands. These instruments, bartered or born from wood and wire, wove melodies that echoed the rail's own song. In jungles and on lonely stretches, tunes rose gentle, binding souls in harmony, reminding them that even in emptiness, the heart could hum a tune of hope. This melody, simple and profound, became their currency of comfort, a lullaby for the weary road that stretched into forever. The harmonica led the chorus, its small frame a perfect bindle companion. easy to play in a gondola's sway or a jungle's hush. Fingers danced over reeds, pulling blues from the metal, notes bending like willows in wind. This train, with its rolling rhythm, mimicked freight cars coupling, verses pleading for a ride to better days. Hobos puffed life into it, adding verses of their own. A line about a bull's chase, a chorus for the next town's promise. Shared around fires, the instrument passed hand to hand, each player imprinting his ache, the sound growing richer with every breath. Guitars followed close, their bodies scarred like old bindles, strings restrung with fence wire when gut gave out. Strummed soft in lean-tos, they birthed folk ballads of rambling fathers and steadfast roads. "Hallelujah, I'm a bum," rang out ironic and true, its plea for hand-me-downs a wink at their self-made world. Fingers picked patterns from memory, chords simple for calloused tips, the wood vibrating against knees like a second heartbeat. In pairs, one played lead, the other harmony, voices low and twined, drawing listeners from shadows. Banjos, rarer but joyful, twanged hoedowns in harvest camps, their 5 strings a burst of light amid toil. Whittled from crates or traded for labor, they sparked dances around flames, feet shuffling gravel to forgotten jigs. Fiddles, bowed with horsehair bows, wept slow airs in winter watches, their wail a mirror to the wind's keen. These sounds, born of nothing, filled voids, turning solitary rides into symphonies of one. Songs served as maps, too. Lyrics laced with lore. Big Rock Candy Mountain, with its candy streams and lemonade springs, painted dreams of plenty, but hidden in refrains were real hints. A mountain pass, safe for hopping, a candy shop kind to beggars. Hobos adapted verses on the fly, swapping towns or tips, the melody a vessel for the code's whispers. Sung in boxcars, they masked talks of routes, bulls none the wiser to the double meaning. At crossroads, choruses swelled crowds, farmers pausing plows to join, coins or cornbread tossed in thanks. These performances, unscripted and earnest, bridged divides, the music a universal tongue in a fractured land. Storytelling married sound in fireside sagas, voices rising and falling like waves. A gravel-throated elder spun yarns of the roadmaster, a mythical chief who judged souls at journey's end, his gavel a thunderclap. Listeners leaned in, eyes reflecting embers, the tale's moral clear. Share the load, honor the code. Laughter punctuated tall tales of ghost trains gliding silent, cargo of gold for the pure-hearted, or bulls turned to frogs by a witch's hex. These fables, half jest, half gospel, taught greenhorns caution, their whimsy easing lessons down. Women added lace to the lyrics, their songs softer, laced with homesick sighs. The little old log cabin in the lane tugged at strings, evoking hearths long left, sung in sister circles with tears wiped on sleeves. Their harmonies, clear as creek water, mended spirits, the notes a gentle mend for the road's rough weave. Children, if in camp, chimed in with rhymes, clapping rhythms on knees, innocence threading joy through the grit. Instruments mended like lives, glue from pine sap sealing cracks, frets filed from nails, a broken reed replaced with grass stem, its tone reedy but true. Barters brought new voices, a tune for a fiddle's case, a ballad swapped for Bo Rosen. In towns, pawnshops yielded fines, $1 begged buying back a forgotten loot. These repairs, patient and precise, mirrored the hobo's own mending. Beauty forged from breakage. Music marked seasons, too. its tempo shifting with the year. Spring's thaw brought lively reels, fiddles calling green growth. Summer nights hummed blues, harmonicas cooling fevered brows. Fall's harvest sang work chants, banjos urging hands through sheaves. Winter's grip drew carols, guitars crooning Silent Night, twisted to rail hymns. Stars overhead the only choir. Migrations carried tunes south. Orange groves echoing, "Pick a bale of cotton," the labor lightened by song. Dust Bowl dirges rose from sealed cars, voices muffled but defiant. Lyrics of rain begged from clouds. These seasonal shifts kept the spirit fluid. Music a river flowing with time. Health found healing in harmony. Songs chasing chills like spells. Lullabies soothed fevers. Rhythms steadying breaths. Chants warded pains. Groups circling the ailing. Voices a warm compress. Midwives hummed to laboring mothers, the melody guiding new life into the world. Minds frayed by miles, unknotted to ballads, verses venting grief like steam. Companions joined refrains, the collective sound a net against despair's pull. Government echoes tuned in faintly. WPA orchestras hiring hobos for scores, their pens scripting symphonies of struggle. Radios in jungles, batteries begged, broadcast Woody Guthrie's Dust Bowl odes, his guitar a friend across waves. Hobos nodded along, adding their own stanzas, the airwaves a bridge to the wide world. Legends sang themselves into being. Bards like Jimmy Rogers, the singing brakeman, his yodels a hobo hymn from beyond the veil. Camp recitals mimicked his lilt, tracks named in his honor, or the phantom fiddler, said to play at crossroads for lost souls, his bow drawing safe paths from strings. These icons, flesh or fancy, inspired, their echoes in every pluck and breath. Pride swelled in performances, hobos kings of their stage, applause the richest wage. No spotlights needed, just fire glow and willing ears. Camps cleared for dances, partners swung in patched finery, the night alive with spin. Pride extended to teaching, elders passing picks to youth, fingers guided on frets, the craft a quiet inheritance. In the nation's mending, music mirrored hope, jazz creeping in from cities, its swing a promise of swing back. Hobos hummed it on halls, the upbeat chasing old blues away. Films flickered hobo troubadours, resilient romantics strumming through storms. Books bound verses, anthologies of road rhyme traded bindle to bindle. As Part 6's final note fades, the melodies linger, soft strains on the wind. The hobo's song, woven from wire and will, calls us deeper, where rhythms soothe and stories sleep, inviting peace in the quiet after. Chord, healing wove through the hobo's days like a quiet river, unseen but essential, carrying them past fevers and fractures without the aid of doctors or dollars. In the deepening shade of the 1930s, when the Great Depression left clinics empty and pharmacies locked, these wanderers turned to the Earth's own pharmacy, their remedies born from bark and berry, handed down in jungle whispers, bodies mended with poultices pressed from weeds, minds steadied by stories shared under stars. The road's toll met with a resilience as old as the trails they trod. No hospitals waited at journey's end, only the next bend with its hidden hazards. So hobos became their own physicians, blending instinct and inheritance into a gentle art of survival. This healing, simple and steadfast, turned weakness to wholeness, a soft testament to the body's wisdom and the spirit's unyielding light. Folk medicine formed the backbone, knowledge passed like bindles from elder to young. Willow bark, stripped from streamside trees, chewed raw or brewed into tea, eased headaches and the ache of rheumatism. Its salicin a natural whisper against pain. Garlic, bulbs begged from gardens or foraged wild, crushed into pastes for chest colds, its pungency chasing infections like smoke from a fire. Yarrow leaves, gathered in meadows, staunched bleeding wounds, bundled as bandages or steeped for fevers that burned hot in boxcar heat. These plants, common as gravel, became allies, identified by shape and scent, harvested with care to leave enough for tomorrow. Recipes varied by region. In the south, sassafras roots simmered for spring tonics, blood purified against winter's drag. Midwest prairies offered goldenrod for urinary woes, its yellow blooms a sunny cure. Recipes unfolded in camps, voices low over bubbling cans. A pinch here, a steep there. The brew strained through cloth to clarity. Trial shaped them, successes shared, failures noted with a shrug. The collective memory a living ledger of what worked. Injuries from the rails demanded swift hands, a twisted ankle from a bad jump, splinted with straight branches lashed by bootlaces, elevated on a bindle as pillow, cuts from barbed wire or glass, cleaned in stream water boiled over coals, sealed with pine pitch or spider webs for their sticky hold, burns from campfire slips, soothed by cool mud packs or aloe leaves split open, their gel a cooling veil. Hobos watched for signs of deeper trouble. Red streaks up a limb, meaning poison in the blood. Treated with hot compresses and rest, the patient carried if the road called. These mends, done by firelight, bound not just flesh but fellowship. One rider's steady hold a debt repaid in kind. Internal ailments met with brews and beliefs. Stomach cramps from bad water or meager meals eased by ginger root grated fine, its warmth settling the churn. Constipation, common on sparse diets, yielded to senna pods gathered in fall, their laxative bite gentle if dosed light. Diarrhea, a thief of strength, countered with blackberry root decoctions. Tannins tightening the gut like a drawstring. Nutrition played its part. Wild greens like lamb's quarters boiled for vitamins. Acorns leached of bitterness and ground to flour for energy. These measures, preventive and palliative, kept the body marching. Weakness warded like an unwelcome guest. Women's cycles brought specialized care, herbs attuned to their rhythms. Raspberry leaf tea, sipped through moons, strengthened wombs against the road's jolts. Evening primrose oil, pressed from seeds, eased cramps that doubled them over. In sister camps, knowledge flowed freer, midwifery a sacred skill. Cloths boiled clean, positions whispered for ease, newborns swaddled in softest rags, births under bridges or in haylofts, attended by candle, marked miracles, the cry of victory over odds stacked high. Children's ills received tender focus, fevers cooled with vinegar cloths, coughs lozenged with honey from wild hives if luck held, mothers monitored with eagle eyes, remedies halved for small frames, the jungle a nursery of watchful care. Mental healing ran deeper. The road's isolation a silent foe. Loneliness crept in during long hauls, thoughts circling like vultures, countered by deliberate connection. Jungle talks peeled layers. Confessions of lost loves or buried shames aired like laundry, lighter for the washing. Songs, as before, served as salve. Choruses drowning doubt in communal voice. Rituals grounded them. A pebble pocketed from a kind town's edge, rubbed for luck. A daily dawn stretch. limbs loosed to the sun's rise, dreams shared at breakfast, sifted for meaning. A train, unbroken, signaling safe passage. A full table promising plenty. These practices, woven into routine, fortified the mind, turning endurance to equanimity. Elders held the lore's core, their years a library etched in wrinkles. Granddads with gravel voices recited cures from Civil War days. Grandmas with steady hands demonstrated poultice presses. Youth learned by doing, fingers guided on bark strips, ears tuned to simmer times. This apprenticeship, patient and immersive, ensured continuity, the old guard fading into the young's capable grasp. Barters extended to bombs. A healer's salve traded for a snares set. Knowledge swapped for knots tied true. In towns, doctors' cast-offs, bandages or bottles, found new homes, their givers marked in code as friends of the frail. The Dust Bowl tested healers hardest. Dust in lungs, a choking curse. Mullein leaves, smoked or teed, loosened phlegm like a key in a lock. Licorice root, dug from damp spots, coated throats raw from grit. Eyes, sand-scoured, rinsed in saline from salt and stream, rested on cool compresses. These defenses, improvised from scarcity, saved breaths, the jungle a clinic amid chaos. Seasonal shifts brought tailored tonics. Spring's thaw invited detox brews. Dandelion roots flushed toxins from winter's hold. Summer's swelter called mint for cooling. Leaves crushed into water for hydration's edge. Fall's chill prompted elderberry syrups. Viruses thwarted before they took hold. Winter's siege demanded fat-rich nuts. Calories banked against the freeze. Migrations carried these calendars. Hobos packing dried herbs in bindles. The road a rolling apothecary. Work's demands added layers. Bodies pushed to limits needing recovery. Harvest stoops eased by arnica rubs. Muscles kneaded deep. Logging strains met with comfrey wraps. Bones knit faster under green salve. Rest, the great healer, enforced in camps. No rides for the limping. Chores lightened for the spent. Pride in self-care ran strong. No weakness admitted lightly, but accepted as part of the path. Government aid trickled in medicinals. CCC camps dispensing aspirin or iodine, though hobos pocketed extras for the wild. Public health drives vaccinated wanderers at rail stops, needles quick against tetanus or typhoid. These interventions, welcomed warily, blended with folk ways, the best of both worlds in a single dose. Legends of leeches and liniments dotted tales. The bone whisperer of the bayou, hands that realigned without touch, or the herb hag of the hills, her satchel a Pandora's of cures, given freely to the faithful. These figures, myth-mantled mentors, inspired emulation, their feats fuel for the healer's fire. Cultural currents carried cures too, newspapers clipped for remedies, radios murmuring Doc Holliday's tonics, books bartered like the Foxfire book precursors, detailed distillations and drafts, songs encoded elixirs, verses hinting at hidden springs or healing springs. Pride in provenance grew. Hobos scorning patent pills for the pure, their brews a badge of the free. In the slow thaw of recovery, health held steady. Plagues passed, but vigilance eternal. Hobos, hardened healers, carried their craft beyond, settling or straying with skills intact. Echoes in ethos lingered. Communities kinder to the clinic-less, gardens grown for the gathering. Films framed folk docs as folk heroes, resilient against the real. As Part 7's remedies settle soft, The hard road's healers fade to memory's glow. Their arts, earthborn and enduring, guide us onward, where wholeness whispers and weariness yields to restorative rest. Legends rose from the hobos' fires like smoke signals, tales spun from half-truths and full hearts, guiding wanderers through the 1930s, unyielding haze with whispers of wonder and warning. Without dollars to buy maps or mentors, these stories became their compass, passed in jungle circles and boxcar murmurs, blending the real with the mythical to make sense of a senseless world. Figures larger than life emerged from the ranks. Ramblers who rode the rails into folklore, their exploits a balm for the broken, a spark for the searching. These legends, etched in memory more than stone, carried the essence of survival, turning hardship into heroism, the road into a saga where every soul played a part. This lore, rich and rambling, unfolded night after night, a gentle weave of inspiration that kept spirits aligned with the stars. A. No. 1. Born Leon Ray Livingston, stood as the Rambler's bard, his bindle heavy with notebooks scrawled in pencil stubs. From the 1890s into the Depression, he clocked 1,000,000 miles. Hopping from Boston's bustle to Frisco's fog, his adventures poured into pamphlets like Hobo Campfire Tales. Sold for pennies at rail stops, these pages mapped the codes, symbols, and snares of the street, teaching greenhorns to spot a kind kitchen or a bull's beat. A. No. 1 preached the gospel of the go, his mustache twitching with tales of Europe hitched on ships, or kings dethroned by a deck of cards. Hobos hailed him as king. His visits to jungles like royal tours, questions answered in his gravel drawl. His end came quiet in 1944, but his words lingered. Bindles of bound lore traded like gold. Blackie, the iron horse cowboy, rode a different rein, his saddle the roof of reefers, spurs the clank of chains. A Texan turned timeless. He claimed 2,000,000 miles, winters in Florida groves, summers in Canadian lumber. His yarns, wild as wind, filled camps, outrunning twisters on horseback, charming sheriffs with sleight of hand. Blackie penned, "You Can't Win," a memoir of cons and comeuppances. Jack Black's ghostwriter in spirit if not ink. Hobos mimicked his swagger, mustaches waxed with axle grease, his code of clean camps carved deeper for his sake. His shadow loomed long, a reminder that the road rewarded the bold with ballad-worthy lives. The Penguin Club gathered these giants in Chicago's underbelly, a secret society of elite riders, feathers in caps for the initiated, meetings in basements thick with pipe smoke, toasts to the rails with jungle brew. Here legends were vetted, tall tales trimmed to truth. The club's ledger, a who's who of wanderers. Admission meant miles proven. Stories sworn on bindles. The penguin suit a tuxedo tie knotted from twine. Their gatherings birthed bylaws. Aid the ailing. Avenge the wronged. The codes court in session. Outsiders dreamed of entry, but the door stayed shut. The club's mystique a magnet for the masses. Women wove their own weaves, sisters like Montana Blackie or Chicago Nell, veiled in men's wool but voices velvet with vice. Montana, a sharpshooter with slingshot and smile, led sister caravans through Wyoming wilds, her legends of lost mines luring listeners lean. Chicago Nell, queen of the con, palmed wallets soft as sighs, her halls funding free feeds for the frail. Their tales, told in hushed huddles, warned of wolves in yards, taught the art of the alias. Pride pulsed in their prose, no damsels but doyens. The road their realm unchallenged. youth legends bloomed too. Boys like the Kansas Kid, a 12-year-old phenom hopping from harvest to harvest, his slingshot felling fowl for feasts, or the Arkansas Angel, a girl in breeches guiding green through Georgia gales, her Bible of berries saving bellies bare. These fledglings, forged in fire young, inspired elders to gentler guards. The next wave's wings watched with wonder. Myths mingled with men. The hobo bill of lore a composite king, his billfold empty but heart full, granting wishes at will. Said to ride the ghost train, a spectral freight unseen but felt. Bill appeared to the desperate, a meal manifested or a bull blinded. Camp kids swore sightings, sketches scratched in sand, the myth a mother's milk for morale, or the lady of the lamp, a lantern-lit lass leaving lights for the lost, her glow guiding gondolas through gales. Sailors spun her as siren, hobos as saint, her legend a lens for longing. Dust Bowl demigods rose from the grit, the dust devil, a dervish dancer who whipped winds to water, his chants calling clouds, Oki's oath bound to his orbit, tales of twisters tamed turning terror to triumph. These regional runes, rooted in ruin, rallied the routed, the bull's bite blunted by belief, migrations minted more. Seasonal sagas of the snowbird sovereign, winter's wanderer winging to warmth, his flock feasting on forgotten fruit. Southbound stories swelled with his sightings, flocks following his flight, the code's caravan coalescing. Spring's sparrow sage, harbinger of thaw, sowed seeds in secret, sprouts surprising the starved. These avatars, assigned to equinoxes, marked time's turn. The calendar a canvas for capers, barters birthed ballads, legends swapped for lore. A yarn for a yarn embellished each exchange, instruments intoned them, guitars groaning epics, harmonicas harmonizing haunts, audiences swelled in jungles, elders enacting escapes, youth aping accents, the night a theater without walls. Health's heroes hid in health, the root doctor a roving remedy man, his satchel secrets from sassafras to salve. Legends linked his elixirs to eternal youth, riders rumoring, rivers run backward for his sake, or the whisper witch. Wind's wise woman weaving wards against woe, her spells sung soft to soothe the scorched. These shamans, shadow or substance, sanctified the sick, faith's fever breaking faster than physic. Government ghosts grazed the gallery, New Deal nomads like the CCC chief, a spectral sergeant selecting souls for service, his summons a siren song from structured shores, hobos hemmed and hawed, half heeding his hail, tales of tree-planting triumphs tempering the temptation. WPA wordsmiths wove worker woes into works, murals manifesting myths. Hobos posed as heroes in fresco. Legends leavened these links, the bureaucracy's bite buffered by bardic buffer. Pride perfused the pantheon. Hobos heirs to their own hall of fame. No plaques but palms pressed in parting. Clean camps consecrated as shrines, symbols saluting the slain or sword. This self-made mythos, minted from miles, mirrored their mettle, the underdog's upper hand. In the wider weave, whispers winged to walls, newspapers nodding to notables, a No.1's autobiography advertised in ads, radios recited ramblings, mock hobos hamming for laughs, the line twixt legend and lampoon left loose. Films framed the fantastic, Sullivan's Travels satirizing the saga, stars slumming in slouch hats. Books bound the bundle, hard traveling, harvesting histories, footnoting the fabled. Songs serenaded the stars, The legend of the hobo lilting on lips versus vending the vision. As Part 8's legends lift on the breeze, their echoes entwine with the endless track. The hobo's heritage, heroic and humble, hurries us hence, where horizons hint at healing horizons. Hush, inviting the heart to home in history's hold, seasons, turned like slow wheels on the hobo's endless track, each one a chapter in the quiet book of survival, marking time without calendars or clocks in the heart of the Great Depression. As the 1930s rolled through their weary middle years, wanderers synced their steps to the earth's gentle pulse, migrating with the migrations of birds and blooms, adapting to summer's blaze and winter's hush without a dollar to buy coats or seeds. Spring's thaw softened frozen ground. Fall's colors painted the plains in farewell. The cycle a rhythm that cradled their days and nights. No fixed hearths held them, only the sky's shifting moods, teaching them to read clouds for rain and winds for warnings. Their lives a soft harmony with nature's unhurried dance. This seasonal sway, predictable yet profound, wove endurance into their bones, turning the land's gifts and trials into a living lesson of flow and flexibility. Spring arrived with a whisper, mud sucking at boots along thawing tracks, rivers swelling to spill fish into shallows, hobos stirred from southern holds, bindles light with winter's leavings, drawn north to the Midwest's awakening fields. Planting seasons called hands for tilling, furrows turned under greening skies, wages in meals of fresh greens and cornbread. Wild ramps poked through leaf litter, their onion bite foraged for stews that chased the last chill. Lean-tos shed frost-crusted canvas, rebuilt with budding branches, the air alive with birdsong that masked the harmonica's dawn tune. Youth in the ranks bloomed too. Greenhorns, hardened by first frosts now spotting edible shoots, fiddlehead ferns uncurled like secrets, boiled tender for breakfast, migrations quickened, boxcars filling with the scent of damp earth, riders trading tales of last winter's woes for hopes of summer's yield. The code etched new marks, spring flowers for fertile farms, budding trees signaling safe streams. These signs, renewed with the season, guided the flow, the road a river swelling with returnees. Summer stretched long and golden, heat shimmering off rails like a fever dream, pushing hobos to shaded routes and evening hops. Western valleys beckoned for haying, scythes swinging in unison under relentless sun. Sweat-soaked shirts traded for shade breaks and lemonade if a farmer took pity. Berries hung heavy on brambles, blackberries staining fingers purple. Pies begged and baked in jungle ashes. Water hunts ruled the days. Canteens refilled at hidden springs. Bandanas wet for necks against the bake. Nights cooled slow. Camps sprawling under milky ways. Guitars strumming lazy waltzes to ward off mosquitoes' whine. Families lingered longer in groves. Children splashing in creeks. Their laughter a rare ripple in the heat's heavy blanket. Dangers sharpened. Heat stroke felled the unwary. Treated with willow shade and sips of salted broth, rattlesnakes coiled in dry grass, their warning shaken off with long sticks. Yet abundance balanced the bite. Salmon runs in Pacific streams, lines cast for silver flashes that grilled smoky over coals. Barters boomed at roadside stands, labor for melons, stories for sweet corn. The sky's dome held storms in its blue, thunderheads building like promises, rains a blessing that greened the dust and filled the pots. Fall painted the world in harvest hues, leaves drifting like confetti on winds that hinted at cold, drawing hobos to the heartlands for the reaping. Orchards bowed under apples and pears, ladders leaned against trunks, baskets filled for a share of the crop or a winter's worth in the bindle. Corn shocks stood like sentinels, husks stripped for meals or mattresses, the jungle air thick with cider's tang, game thickened in woods, squirrels fattened on acorns, snares yielding fur for trade or felt hats, migrations reversed, southbound freights groaning under loads of migrants, boxcars a mosaic of faces etched by sun, preparations whispered through camps, nuts gathered and buried in caches, herbs dried for teas against coming coughs, clothing thickened, patches sewn for warmth, boots risoled before snows slicked the ties, songs turned nostalgic, Red River Valley fading into dusk, voices thick with the season's sweet sorrow, children gathered leaves for play, pressing them in books begged from schools, a touch of permanence in the pull, the code warned of early frosts, a falling leaf for hasty hops, barren branches for barren towns. These autumn cues read in the rustle, hurried steps. The cycles turn a teacher of timely grace. Winter cloaked the land in white silence, winds howling hymns to the bear, hobos fleeing to the sunbelt's milder grasp. Florida's keys offered citrus picks, fingers sticky with juice under palm shade. Groves a green haven from northern bite. Texas plains held cattle drives, though mechanized, still needing hands for branding. Steaks rare but real from the herd. Jungles hunkered low. Fires banked against gales. Bodies wrapped in layered rags and shared blankets. Snows in the north trapped stragglers. Boxcars iced shut. Breaths fogging glass as engines chugged south. Remedies ruled the dark months. Pine needle tea for scurvy's shadow. Fat from hunted coons rendered for salves. Nights stretched eternal. Stories spun to fill the void. Legends of summer's return staving off despair. Migrations peaked. The great southward surge a river of riders. Yards choked with hopeful leaps. Families clustered closer. Tales told to quiet young fears. The cycle's wheel turning slow but sure. Barters warmed the lean. Wood chopped for wool. Songs for socks. The sky's gray vault promised nothing but held the first star's wink. A nod to endurance's quiet power. The Dust Bowl warped these wheels in the plain's core. Seasons skewed by drought's cruel hand. Summers eternal in their sear. Winters wet with mud from rare rains. Hobos adapted deep, sealing cars against grit. Masks of cloth a second skin. Spring's false dawns tricked with dust devils. Fall's winds whipping soil to skies black as night. Yet even here, cycles bent but broke not. Underground roots tapped for water. Resilient weeds teaching the ways of the tough. Migrations swelled with the displaced. Okies weaving into the weave. Their songs adding twang to the chorus. Work's rhythm quickened in off-seasons. New Deal dams demanding diggers year-round. Rivers rerouted under any sun. Health's guard stood firm. Seasonal tonics timed to the tilt. Summer's cooling cucumbers foraged. Winter's warming roots dug deep. Music marked the moods. Fiddles fierce in fall storms. Lutes languid in lazy July. Legends layered with latitude. The winter witch of the woods, a weaver of warmth, her cloak of clouds covering the cold, or the summer sprite, a shimmer in the heat who led to shade and springs, her laugh the locusts hum. These seasonal shades, shared in solstice sings, sweetened the shifts, the myth a buffer to the bear. Pride pulsed perennial, hobos husbands to the horizon, no season their master, but all their mirrors. Camps conformed to climes, summer sprawls to winter wedges, the earth their ever-changing bed. In the nation's narrative, cycles synced slow, rains returning to right the wrongs, harvests hinting at healing. Hobos felt the flux in fuller freights, jobs juicier with juice, yet the road's round retained its round. A choice chased beyond the calendar's close. Echoes in the ether carried the cadence. Calendars clipped from papers, marking moons for the moved. Radios recited rural rounds. Farm reports a faint friend to the far. Films framed the fields. The grapes of wrath. A gritty gospel of the gather. Wanderers watching wide-eyed in way stations. Books bound the bounty. Almanacs annotated with asterisks for the apt. Songs saluted the spin. Autumn leaves a hobo hymn, verses vending the vista. As Part 9's seasons settle into soft succession, the sky's cycles circle on, a serene spiral sustaining the soul. The hobo's harmony with heaven and hillock holds us here, horizons half hidden, hush herding us to the heart's hushed. Harbor.work wove through the hobo's days like a steady undercurrent, a quiet current pulling them from one labor to the next across the vast canvas of the depression-scarred land, where every task earned not gold but the simple grace of a meal or a night's shelter. In the waning heart of the 1930s, as New Deal wines began to stir the stagnant air, these wanderers sought out the seasonal summons of fields and forests, their hands calloused maps of effort that bought time on the rails without a single dollar's demand. Harvests called like old friends. Construction crews hummed with promise. Odd jobs blooming in back alleys and farmyards, each one a thread in the tapestry of self-made sustenance. No bosses owned their hours, only the land and the labor, turning sweat into stories shared around evening fires, the rhythm of toil a gentle anchor in the endless drift. This work, fleeting and fierce, filled the bindle with more than scraps. It filled the soul with the soft satisfaction of purpose, earned from the earth itself. Harvest fields stretched golden under autumn suns, drawing hobos like moths to the flame of abundance, their backs bent to the picking of cotton, bowls in Texas flats or wheat, sheaves in Dakota plains, fingers nimble from years on ladders, plucked apples from New England branches, baskets heavy with red orbs traded for cider and a corner in the barn. Pay came in kind most often, a ham hock sizzling over coals, a sack of potatoes slung beside the bindle, enough to stretch through leaner rides. Crews formed loose and lively, songs rising with the scythe's swing. John Henry hammered out to match the reaper's beat. Women joined the lines too, skirts hitched for the stoop. Their quotas met with quiet pride. Berries stained on palms like badges. Children scampered edges, gathering windfalls or driving strays, their small hands learning the land's give. These gatherings swelled jungles at season's close, tales of bountiful bosses mingling with gripes of greedy overseers, the code marking farms fair or foul. Construction bloomed under federal funds, bridges spanning rivers in steel size, hobos hauling timbers, or mixing mortar in cities stirring from sleep. WPA crews welcomed the willing, picks striking gravel in unison, roads unfurling like ribbons across forgotten counties. Wages trickled, a dime a day pocketed deep, or board in barracks with beans thrice daily. Skills shown here. A carpenter's plane smoothing planks, a mason's trowel laying even courses. Trades bartered from bindle lore. Dangers danced close. Scaffolds swaying in gusts, hammers glancing off nails. But camaraderie steadied the step. Jokes joshed over lunch pails. The skylines rise a shared silhouette. Logging camps in the Northwest's wet wilds called the hardy, axes biting firs that towered like giants, falls crashing thunder in the hush. Chainsaws, new and roaring, demanded steady grips, but hobos hefted peavies to roll logs to rivers. Floats down the Columbia a wild water ballet. Pay in scrip or silver, spent on socks or syrup at company stores. The forest's green a balm after urban grind. Winters there meant snowshoe treks to fell deadwood. Fires roaring in cook shacks with stew thick as mud. Songs of Paul Bunyan echoed, half myth, half memory. The giants' strides mirroring their own long halls. Odd jobs filled the gaps. The road's quiet opportunities blooming unexpected. A widow's roof patched against spring rains. Shingles nailed true for a pot of porridge and a yarn swapped in return. Factories on edges hired day hands for loading crates, backs aching but bellies full by dusk. The whistles blow a signal to slip away unseen. Fishing fleets on coasts needed net menders. Hooks baited with clams dug at low tide. Catches scaled for a share smoked over beach fires. Barber shops sought sweepers, clippers buzzing tales from travelers, tips in tobacco twists. These snippets, strung like beads, sustained the wander, each one a knot in the net of necessity. Bartering bridged the barren spells, work's shadow economy thriving on trust's thin thread. A fence mended for a fence post's worth of wire, twisted into snares for supper. Hay baled for a bale's hide to sole boots. Leather tough as the task. Stories spun for a stranger's supper. Epics of escapes earning extra eggs. In markets, labor lent for loaves. The vendors nod, sealing the scale. Pride priced these trades high. No beggar's bow, but a worker's worth. The exchange even in eyes that knew the lean. Families factored work finer. Parents pairing tasks to tend the young. Mothers sewing seams while fathers felled fuel. Children apprenticed light. Berry buckets carried. Eggs gathered at dawn. Their earnings tucked for treats. A candy stick savored slow. Sister crews in laundries or kitchens. Irons pressed or pots stirred. Their wages whispered to wilder wants. A dress mended from mill scraps. The dust bowl's dry grip gripped grips tighter. Work warped by wind's whim. Plows pushed through powder for pennies pale. Hobos hauled to California dreams. Pea fields picked under relentless rays. Camps crude but communal. Songs of Steinbeck's sorrow sung soft. Yet yields yielded yields. Pods podded for porridge. The cycle's cruelty carved into calluses. Health's hand hovered over toil. Breaks bandaged mid-mow. Tonics tipped from bindles to temper the thirst. Elders eased into easier ends. Wisdom weighed over young backs. The load lightened by lore's lift. Government gears ground grander. CCC camps a chorus of chores. Trees terraced on hillsides. Trails traced through timber. Youth yanked from rails to ranks. Paychecks posted homeward. Hobos hemmed in the haze, half joining for the jam and juice, half holding to the horizon's haze. Legends labored large. The working man Walt, a wraith who whistled while he worked, his phantom picks piling plenty for the poor. Or the harvest hag, a hooded helper hauling sheaves unseen, her bounty blessing the bent. These work-wrought wonders, whispered in weary hours, willed the will to wield the wheelbarrow one more round. Music muscled through the muscle, chants chaining the chain gang's clank. Fiddles fiddling breaks from the bind. In the broader bend, work's wake rippled wide. Factories flickering back to life. Fields feeding the foundry. Hobos sensed the shift in steadier shifts. Jobs juicier with juice. Yet the wanders whisper one. Work a waypoint, not a wall, echoes etched in ether. Employment edicts on etched papers, radios reciting relief rolls, films forged the forge. Bound for glory, binding bindle to beam, Guthrie's guitar a guide, books bolstered the burden. Hard times, harvesting hands from history's hold, as Part 10's labors lay down to dusk, the weavings unwind soft. Threads trailing to tomorrow's tasks, the hobo's handiwork, humble and healing, hauls us hence, horizons heavy with hope's half-light, hush hurting the heart to harbor in the hum of honest toil. Dust, hung in the air like a forgotten veil, turning day to twilight across the Great Plains in the 1930s, a silent storm that chased hobos from their familiar paths and tested the quiet strength woven into their wandering souls. As the Depression dug its roots deeper, the Dust Bowl's grip squeezed farms into ghosts, winds howling secrets of loss that carried wanderers westward on packed freights, their bindles sealed against the grit that clawed at lungs and eyes. No dollars could buy clear skies or steady soil. So hobos leaned into the land's fury, learning to seal boxcars with rags and read the horizon for mercy's hint. Their survival, a soft defiance against nature's unyielding whisper. This chapter of choking earth and unbowed spirits unfolds in the haze, where every breath became a bridge to the next clear dawn. Resilience rising like a hidden spring from the parched ground. The storms came unannounced, black blizzards rolling from the west like thunderless waves, soil lifted in clouds that blotted the sun and sifted through every crack. Hobos, caught mid-ride in open gondolas, wrapped scarves tight over noses, eyes squinted to slits against the sting. The world reduced to a blur of brown and bite. Boxcars became bunkers, doors braced with benches, interiors dim as caves where riders huddled with knees to chests, breaths shallow to save the air, days blurred into sameness, the train's rumble muffled by the gale outside, water rationed from dented cans that tasted of rust and regret. When the wind relented, they emerged coughing, clothes caked in clay, shaking powder from bindles like flour from a sieve. These tempests, born of plowed prairies and drought's dry kiss, stripped topsoil to the bone, leaving fields barren as forgotten promises. Families fled first, okies and arkies piling into jalopies until engines gave out, then onto rails with what they could carry, a quilt, a photo, a seed of hope. Hobos met them at junctions, sharing space in reefers, tips traded like treasures, wet cloths for masks, goggles begged from mechanics for sight. Jungles swelled with newcomers, pots stretched thin for mulligan laced with grit, stories of buried homes mingling with maps to greener valleys. The code adapted quick, symbols scratched for dust-free roads, a swirling arrow for safe winds, a covered wagon for water wagons that passed rare. These marks, dusted but defiant, guided the Great Migration, turning terror to trail. Water turned precious as gold dust, streams choked to mud, wells sucked dry by the gale. Hobos divined with willow forks, or followed cattle trails to hidden seeps, fingers probing cracks for moisture's cool touch. Dew collected at dawn on tarps stretched taut, beads shaken into cups like manna from the meager sky. Barters bloomed around the blue, a canteen's fill for a watch's wind, labor at pumps for a ladle's share. In parched camps, priorities shifted. Fires low to save wood, meals moistened with cactus pulp scraped from pads, its spines a small price for the slake. Children learned young. tongues clicked for rain clouds that never came, their play and dust devils a mimicry of the maelstrom. Health's shadow loomed long in the haze, lungs laden with silt that sparked coughs deep and dry. Mullein teas, leaves steeped strong, loosened the lodged. Steam inhaled from kettles to clear the choke. Eyes, red-rimmed and raw, bathed in saline from salt licked from hides. Cool cloths drawn from rare rains. Fevers flared from the fight. Bodies burning against the burn. Willow bruised the only balm in bindles bare. Elders watched closest, their wisdom a ward. Rest in wind's wake. Move at dusk's draw. Women wrapped the week in layers. Sister circles sewing masks from flour sacks. Their stitches a shield of soft resolve. Work warped under the whirlwind. Plows pointless in powder fields. Harvests hollowed to husks. Hobos turned to salvage, hauling scrap from storm-stripped barns, wire twisted for snares that caught lean jackrabbits. Road crews, New Deal born, graded gravel through gales, picks biting earth that bit back, pay in promises of progress. Migrations massed to the west, California calling like a siren's song. Freights fat with faces fixed on fruit belts. Yards at borders choked, leaps desperate in the dim. Bonds formed in the crush of shared squeeze. Songs rose ragged from the ranks. Dust Bowl blues, woody style. Guitars groaning the gale's grief. Choruses a catharsis for the caught. Legends lifted from the loam. The dust devil dancer, a dervish who twirled tempests to stillness, his steps a spell for the spellbound, or the rainmaker rambler. Bindle brimmed with bones that begged clouds, sightings sworn at storm's skirt. These yarns, yarned in yellowed light, yielded yield to the yoke. Myth, a mist that moistened the morale. Kindness cut through the choke. Farmers, few but fair leaving jugs at gates. Anonymous oases in the ochre. Churches carted canteens to camps. Broth boiled clean of grit. Prayers paired with portions. Strangers shared scarves. A square of cloth, a square deal in the swirl. Repaid in ripples. Fences fixed post-fury. Gardens guarded from gusts. The give a gale against the get. Families fared fiercer in the fray. Mothers metering meals for the small. Fathers forging forward through fog. Children chased tumbleweeds like kites, their games a gasp of glee in the grind. Births in bunkers, midwives murmuring through the moan, new lives a nod to the never give-in. Barters buffered the bare dustpans for dewdrops, masks mended for maps marked true. Pride puffed against the powder. Hobos hosts to the horde. No hoarders but holders of the line. Government gears ground against the gust. Soil conservation crews contouring contours. Trees terraced to tame the tear. Hobos hired for the haul. Seedlings spaced in sandy rows. Their hands a hedge against the howl. Yet the wild won many back. The roads rasp a rhythm too rooted to root. Music muted the menace. Harmonicas huffing hymns to the horizon. Fiddles fingering fog into flight. In the wider wash, the bowl's breath blew beyond borders. Headlines howling the human toll. Migrants mirrored in movies like The Grapes of Wrath. Steinbeck's script a salve for the scene. Radios rasped relief reports. Rains rumored in the ridges. Books burrowed the burden. Let us now praise famous men. A paean to the plowed under. Songs scattered the sorrow. So long, it's been good to know ya. A farewell to the fields. As Part 11's dust drifts to distant dunes, the whispers weaken to wind's sigh. The hobos hold on the haze, hardy and hushed, hails us homeward. Horizons hazy with healing's half-dream, heart hushed in the hush of history's hold. Transitions came soft as dawn light on the rails, subtle shifts in the hobos, whirled as the 1930s edged toward their close. The Great Depressions, long shadow beginning to thin under the steady hand of recovery's first breaths. No sudden breaks marked the change, only a gradual easing of the grind, where jobs lingered a day longer and trains carried fewer desperate faces. Wanderers finding themselves at crossroads of choice rather than chase. Without dollars to dictate their drift, hobos navigated this new current with the same quiet grace that had carried them, through black blizzards and empty bowls, some settling into the pull of permanence while others clung to the road's familiar freedom. Factories hummed a bit louder, fields yielded fuller harvests, and government lifelines stretched wider, offering bridges from bindle to bungalow that many crossed with cautious steps. This era of quiet turning, where resilience met renewal, wove new patterns into their tales, a gentle reminder that even the hardest paths could bend toward home without breaking the wanderer's unyielding spirit. The New Deal's tendrils touched more lives. Programs like the Works Progress, administration pulling hobos from freight roofs to fairer footing, their hands now shaping sidewalks in sleepy towns or stitching scripts for stage plays that echoed the road's own rhythm. A day's wage in actual coin, not just cornbread, felt foreign at first, pockets jingling like unfamiliar friends, spent on stamps to send south to kin or a new razor to scrape away the grit of years. Camps near projects buzzed with builders turned bards, evenings filled with debates over staying put or slipping back to the sway, the choice a personal poem recited by firelight. Many dipped in for a season. Barracks beds, a luxury savored before the wild itch returned, their labor leaving legacies, in parks planted with perennials that bloomed, long after the boots moved on. The Civilian Conservation Corps called the young strong, tree spikes driven into hillsides to hold soil against old ghosts, uniforms crisp but spirits still stamped with the stampede, paychecks modest but mailed, bridged gaps to grandmas in Georgia, letters laced with lore of lakes stocked and lodges raised. Hobos older watched from afar, pride pricking at the pull, knowing the structured swing suited some souls better than the solo stride. Social Security's whisper arrived late for the lifelong loose, but its safety net caught a few frayed edges. Pensions pondered in pipe dreams of porches rocked. These federal folds, once eyed with suspicion, softened into supports, the bureaucracy's blanket warmer than expected in winter's waning wail. Factories flickered back to fever, assembly lines assembling futures from the fragments of fallow, hobos hired for the haul or the hammer, rivets set in shipyards swelling for war's distant drum. Detroit's roar drew riders from rails, auto plants pulsing with purpose, pay envelopes fat enough for first rents in row houses tight with kin. Women welded in waves, arcs flashing like fireflies, their aprons traded for overalls that hid the hems of hidden hardships. Shifts ended with suppers shared. Stories of strikes simmered down. The Union Hall a new jungle where mayors were voted, not voiced. Yet the road's residue remained. Bindles stashed in closets. A quiet rebellion against the clock's tick. Rural revivals rippled too. Farms foreclosed, finding new feet under farm security loans. Hobos turned tenants tilling plots promised as their own. Co-ops cropped up in corners. Tractors traded for toil. Harvests hauled to markets where middlemen melted away. A plot's pride bloomed slow. Seeds sown with the same care as snares set. Yields yielding to yards fenced soft. Families flourished here. Children chasing chickens instead of cars. the cycle closing gentle on the open, some strayed back seasonal, the road a relative revisited, balance found in the bend between belonging and the beyond, personal paths parted profound, stories splitting like streams from a single spring. Take the tale of Red, a rail rat from Reno who rode to reform, his bindle buried under a boarding house bed, nights now nailed to night shifts in a Nebraska mill, letters laced with longing for the lonesome, but grandkids on knees grounded the groundswell, or Sadie, sister of the switchyards, who stitched her way to a seamstress shop in Seattle, needles now neat in patterns not patches, her songs still summoning sisters on Sundays soft, their transitions, told in traded tomes or tavern talks, traced the trail from transient to tenant, the heart's horizon half-homed, youth yielded to yearning. Boys who boarded at 12 now building at 22, blueprints blueprinted from Bindle blueprints, girls gathered in grammar schools, books begged no more but borrowed from shelves steady, elders eased into echoes, pensions patting the porch, yarns yarned to young ears hungry for the hum, the code carried on covert, symbols scratched in sheds or shared in sublets, the network a nerve that never quite numbed, music mirrored the mend, ballads bending from blues to brighter blues, guitars groaning less of grief and more of the grind's goodbye. Radios in rented rooms retold the road, Guthrie's growl a ghost grown gentle, his pastures of plenty a nod to the new, harmonicas huffed in harmony with factory horns, the rhythm a bridge from boxcar to boulevard, legends lingered luminous. A. Nobo's adventures anthologized in attics, Blackie's bravado boxed in biographies, new myths minted from the middle, the settled sage who summoned storms to stay, his cabin a crossroads for the conflicted, or the return rambler, a revenant rider reclaiming roots, his ghost greasing the gears of going home. These fables, faded but fond, fueled the flux. Fancy a friend in the farewell. Kindness kept its kernel. Now, in neighbors' nods or neighborhood nights, pots passed over pickets instead of pots. Churches chorused choruses of welcome. Soup still sacred, but spoons silvered. Barters blurred to buys, but the spirit stayed. A swap of skills for smiles in the slow settle. Health's harvest healed holier. Clinics closer with care covered. Folk fixes folded into formulas fair. Dust's dregs dispersed. Lungs lighter with the land's lift. Tonics traded for tablets that tasted of trust. Pride perched perennial. In pay stubs or plots plowed. The hobo's hallmark a heart unharnessed by the hold. In the wider world, war's whisper warmed the weld. Europe engulfed but America arming. Jobs jumping like jacks. Hobos heard the hum in headlines clipped from counters. The pull to production a prod from the past. Films fanned the flame. The grapes of wrath, grainy on guild screens. Migrants marching to might. Books bolstered the bridge. Now in November, narrating the now, transitions tenderly traced. Songs saluted the shift. Union Maid, a marching melody for the maid. As Part 12's threads twist toward twilight, the transitions temper to tranquility's touch. The hobo's half-home, humble and hopeful, hovers on the half-light, heart hushed in the harmony of history's healing hold. The road never truly ended for the hobos. Even as the 1930s slipped into the 1940s, their whispers lingering like faint tracks in the dust. A final gentle fade into the fabric of a nation slowly mending its frayed seams, with World War II's call pulling the last wanderers, from boxcar shadows into factory lights and uniform ranks. The Great Depression's grip loosened at last. leaving behind a legacy of quiet triumphs, etched in the hearts of those who rode without. A dollar, but rich in resolve. Factories roared with purpose once more. Rails reserved for cargo, not companions. Jungles reclaimed by weeds, as the wanderers scattered to shores and shops. Some settling with the soft weight of stories told to wide-eyed children by hearth fires. Yet the spirit of the hobo, that unyielding thread of freedom and fellowship, wove on through generations, a soothing reminder that survival's true currency was the bond of shared silences and the land's unspoken gifts. This closing chapter drifts like evening mist over the iron veins they once claimed, gathering the echoes of their endurance into a lullaby that carries us home, where history's hush invites the deepest rest. The war's drumbeat quickened the quiet shift. Enlistments emptying yards of the young and strong. Hobos trading bindles for barracks bags. Their rail-honed grit a gift to the grind of assembly lines or the foxholes far away. Shipyards in California hummed with hammers from hands that once hopped freights. Rivets set with the same steady rhythm that sealed boxcar doors against dust. Women, long sisters of the secret paths, stepped bolder into the breach, welding torches in place of whittled whistles. Their songs now hummed over ship hulls that sailed to storms overseas. Paychecks flowed fuller. Pockets no longer pinched but padded, yet many mailed half homeward. The old ethic of sharing undimmed by the dollar's shine. Letters laced the lines back to the road. Tales of training camps traded for tips on ties that didn't tangle. The code's quiet code carried in creases of khaki. Those too old or too scarred stayed stateside, odd jobs in orchards or offices. Their days a gentle glide from the grand adventure. Evenings eased with pipes puffed slow, and memories murmured to the moon. Jungles faded soft, overgrown with grass that whispered of wilder times. Symbols weathered on fence posts like ancient runes, read only by those who knew the language of the lost. A circle faded to a smudge meant a good road once walked. Crossed lines a warning long since heeded. The network's nerve quiet, but never quite numb. Camps that once crackled with choruses now echoed empty. Fires banked forever, but in scattered suburbs. Backyard gatherings gathered the ghosts. Old riders reuniting with rusted harmonicas. Tunes trembling like leaves in a light breeze. Their gatherings, rare as rain in the bowl, revived the rhythm. Mulligan simmered from cans. Stories spun of close calls and kind souls. Laughter low like the last train's rumble. Children, born to the settled but schooled in the saga, carved their own codes in sidewalk chalk. Games of hopscotch, hopping freights in their minds. The legacy, a light load past light. Personal paths concluded in poignant pauses. Figures like the elder who etched, his final symbol, a heart for the home he half hoped for before. The bindle hung from a hook in a hall, or the sister who sewed her stories into quilts. Patches pieced from prairie prints and pocket rags. Each stitch a stanza of the road's refrain. Their endings, not grand but graceful, folded the fold, the wander closing on a circle soft as a sigh. Music mellowed to memory. Guitars gathering dust, but dusted for reunions. This land is your land. A wartime weave that wrapped the wild in welcome. Radios, now in living rooms, retold the ramble. Broadcasts of ballads bridging the before and the beyond. Guthrie's growl a grandfather's grace. Legends lived on luminous A-Note 1's adventures in attic editions. Blackie's bravado breathed in barroom breaths. The Pantheon, a private pantomime for the proud. New myths minted from the muster. The war road warrior, A spectral sergeant scouting safe shores, his whistle the wind's wing, or the home front hobo, a hearthside haunter helping hands to hold, her hum the harmony of half-settled hearts. These final fables, fancy's farewell, filled the fade, faith's flame flickering final, kindness culminated in quiet kinships, neighbors nodding to the nodding old, pots passed over porches with portions plenty, churches chorused the chorus one last time, suppers sacred in sanctuaries settled, the soup a symbol of the shared, barters blurred to bequests, tools traded to tots with tails attached, the give a gentle goodbye to the get, health's harvest held home, bodies bent but unbroken, folk fixes folded into family folders, willow teas warmed in winter windows, pride perched eternal, in plaques pinned, or just the palms pressed to a grandchild's, the hobo's hallmark, a horizon half-horizoned by the hold. In the nation's narrative now, the war's wake washed the wounds, victory gardens yielding to victory bonds. The Depression, a dim chapter in textbooks thick. Hobos heard the history in hushed tones, their part paragraphed in passing, yet the pulse persisted. Wanderers' ways whispering in weekend walks or wildflower hunts. Films framed the finale. The wayward bus, a wistful wave to the way. Stars strumming the strings of the strayed. Books bound the bundle last. Bound for glory, a binding bow. Transitions tenderly traced to the trail's true end. Songs saluted the sunset. So long, it's been good to know ya. A soft send-off. Verses vending the vista one last view. As the echoes settle into the soil, the endless road rolls on in dreams. A distant rumble rocking the rest. The hobo's journey, from crash to calm, closes this circle soft, their survival a song sung low, lulling the listener to the land of nod where history holds its hush, and peace prevails in the quiet after the quest. With this final whisper from the wild, let the tale trail off into twilight, eyelids heavy with the weight of wonders worn well, drifting deep into the dream where rails run forever free.